Canare here with another instructional video. Today's feature is our recently released 12G rated right-angle BNC connector, the BCP L-2.5CHD. We will demonstrate the installation of our new connector using our L-2.5CHD cable, which has recently been certified to meet 12G standards SMPTE ST2082 for transmission distances up to 43 meters or 141 feet. The tools we'll be using today are our coax stripper, the TS100U, alongside our Crimp Tool, the TC1, and already installed die set L-2.5CHD. We'll also be using a pair of mini cutters to assist us in cleaning up the cable as we move along in the process. So what we'll want to do first is grab our cutters and cut the cable flush, so that when we go insert it into our tool, we'll get the cleanest strip of the cable as possible. Now, prior to doing that, we'll want to utilize our crimp sleeve and insert the notched part in first, like so. And we'll now proceed with moving our stuff out of the way here. Make sure we don't lose that center pin. Now, like mentioned, we'll be using our TS100U coax stripper. We'll have it preset already to the L-2.5CHD, which is the cable that we'll be stripping today. So what we want to do is insert our cable into the coax stripper and make sure that the cable sits flush against the clear cap here. Once we verify that that all looks good, we'll lock down the lid. You'll hear that snap. And what we'll do is we'll give it 10 to 20 turns to ensure the best cut possible. Now, we'll want to make sure that you go in one rotation, not back and forth. So in one direction, as you saw me do there. So now the next step we'll do is we'll release the lid itself here, and that'll snap open like that. Now the next step is we'll push down on this lever here with slight pressure, not a lot. You just want to make sure that you're making contact with the cable itself. Now what this is going to do is going to score the cable, so that when we go remove the jacket, it'll be an easier process. So now that we've stripped the cable, you'll notice here we have the center conductor exposed. We have the aluminum shielding here exposed as well, because that cleaned off the braided shield. Now here, if you look here, you'll notice that that's the score that I referred to. So now we'll peel back on this, and this will release the rest of that little bit of jacket that we had left over there. Now we'll want to make sure that there's no loose strands left behind. Flake away at that, just like that for a little bit. Now the next step here, what we'll want to do is separate the braided shielding from the rest of the cable in order for us to fan it out. A little trick that I like to do is I like to grab it from the center conductor and the dielectric and just start turning it around slightly, and you'll start seeing the braid start fanning out a little bit. Now we'll pull back on the hairs here to make it a little bit easier, so that we're able to cut the aluminum foil underneath the braided shield. Now the reason that we do that is to ensure that the connector itself has a proper seating when we go to insert the connector once the center pin has been crimped on. Now in this case, as you can see here, the aluminum foil has the slit there. So what we'll be doing with our cutters, we'll come in here and we'll just want to get as close as possible without nicking the braid itself, and just give it a nice little snip there. And then with our fingers, we'll do the rest and remove the rest of that foil that's left behind. Now in this case, we didn't do a great job, so just want to come back in here and clean that up. It's very important that all of this aluminum shielding that we have here gets removed in order to ensure, like I said, that our connector is going to be seated properly. Now that we have that all done, as you can see, our dielectric is exposed. We'll want to make sure that our braided shield is fanned out evenly. And the next step here is we'll take our center pin and put it onto our center conductor. You want to make sure there's nothing on there to avoid any type of shorts. Same thing around the dielectric and center conductor area. Want to make sure that there's nothing there. So we'll proceed with putting on the center pin. Now that center pin should sit on there flush like that with no gaps or anything being exposed underneath it. Next up, we'll come in with our crimp tool. We'll use the smaller notch here in order to crimp our center pin. You'll come in with the tool here and slowly come in. Make sure that you're flush, and you'll give it one quick smooth motion, and there you have your center pin crimped. All right, now our next step after this is going to be the connector itself. So what we'll want to make sure is once we push this in, that you either feel that the connector has locked into place, or sometimes you can actually hear an audible click. Sometimes in a smaller gauge cable you might not hear it, but with the thicker cables you'll definitely hear the BNC snap into place, and you'll definitely feel the connector lock into place. So we'll proceed with pushing this down with a little bit of force, and we should feel that connector lock into place. There you go. And now the next step here, you can see that's on there nice and tight, nice and snug. The next step is we'll start bringing this braided shield that we fanned out back up, and now we'll want to make sure that that's clean enough, and then slide up our crimp sleeve. So we'll slide that up. Now what you want to make sure of is that there's no exposed braided shield anywhere around here. Now if you do see anything, you could always pull this back and then just come around here and just snip around the ends, clean it up a little bit more if you need to. Again, sometimes it's going to be necessary, sometimes it won't, you know, but you be the best judge of that, obviously. So like I said, you'll want to come around here and just make sure that there's no exposed braided shield that's going to be outside of the crimp sleeve here. All right, so we clipped some of those strands away. Now we'll come back up here, and everything looks nice and flush, nice and clean. So our next step will be the crimping of the crimp sleeve itself. On the tool itself, you'll have two notches, the larger one and the smaller one. In this case, because we're working with the smaller cable, we'll be utilizing the smaller notch. So you'll want to make sure that you open up your tool. Now that tool should sit snugly against the base of the connector. You'll slowly come down, and then in one motion, you'll want to crimp that, and there you have it. That is how you crimp our right angle BNC connector. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe the video. Remember to be heard and stay connected. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you.